Hey, women's basketball fans. We've got another episode of Gotta Get Up on a Tuesday, and we're going to talk about a few other WNBA players headed to the Olympics with a few of the other national teams that will be competing. And yeah, we got to talk about them Super Bowl comments. All that and more coming up on Gotta Get Up. Gotta get up. Gotta get up. Gotta get up. Hey, women's basketball fans. Welcome to Gotta Get Up, a podcast for New York Liberty fans, brought to you by Black Rosie Media and hosted by Erica L. Ayala. Hey, what do you say, women's basketball fans? Welcome to a Tuesday edition of Gotta Get Up, a podcast for New York Liberty fans. Erica L. Ayala here alongside Brian Florentin, the OG crew in the house, as Misha Jones here in spirit, but is on the coast of Ireland, I believe, Brian, these days, hanging out. We are excited to be back. Hey, Daniel, we appreciate you stopping through. Hola, Damien. We got lots to talk about. But Brian, first, how you living?
You know, Erica, you've been in New York long enough, and you know the days where it feels like a swamp. I swear to God, I feel like I've just been underwater for the past like 3 days. Like every time I walk, I'm like, yo, why is it so muggy? Like
Yeah, man.
Like I could probably go out for a run, but I'm like, do I want to run when it's like 97% humidity outside? I'm like, no.
Nah.
Let me just stay inside next to the space cooler and this fan and enjoy my summer that way.
I hear you. Well, at least if and when you do go on that run, I don't know if you ever come to, the East Harlem, but I'll tell you what, there's just certain things you don't do in every borough. But one of the things that you don't do, Brian, is that you don't take the 6 to 106 and then cross over to First Ave. You better get off at 96 and then walk over. You know why? Because them garbage bags just be sitting on the block. But apparently, as soon as I leave New York, all of a sudden we want to get trash cans. What are your thoughts on the latest New York City news?
Yes, we are in. It's a new day in New York City.
Yo, that was the corniest press conference. Like, I didn't even watch the whole thing. I just watched the beginning and I was like, bruh, just get to it. Like, come on.
He was so happy too. I was like, all right, we get cans now. What a world.
I mean, what a world. What a novel idea. Imagine. No more just throwing that thing down the Harper and hoping for the best. Aloysius, good evening. We appreciate y'all joining us. We know we usually record on the Thursday, but just with all of our schedules, we wanted to pop in here. So I alluded to this in our open, but Brian, we have a few teams that have announced their rosters. We talked a little bit, I think, last episode about Team Canada, but since we have, heard from the Opals, which is, of course, Sandy Brondello's team, and her squad has been named. I actually talked about that on another Black Rosie Media podcast. We're going to have that episode drop tomorrow. Yes, we got a new podcast coming through. And then I got an email in my inbox. So all this time, Brian, we were talking about Kelsey Plum as the honorary Boricua when we should have been maybe looking at Megan Gustafson as the honorary Latina.
Boy, I feel like the world is such a funny place. It's like we had this whole idea of the Puerto Rican plumcess when it turns out it's Mamacita Meg. There we go.
Mamacita Meg. Hilarious. So the Aces announced in an email that she will be representing Team Spain. And if y'all know anything about the Olympics or just, women's basketball on the national level, I mean, España, they're not to be trifled with. That's a pretty solid team right there. And so she was naturalized, a naturalized Spaniard. She competed in the European nation Olympic qualifying team in 2024. They played Canada, Japan, and host Hungary in February 8th through the 11th. And so she will be on that team. They open against Team China, and then they play PR and Serbia. That's what group they are in. So I think this is pretty solid. I mean, we also have the opals. I mean, there's a litany, there's a run through of players here, but I think obviously the big one is, just when I think I'm done, they bring me back in, Lauren Jackson. They bring me back in. Yes. Yes. I love it. We're making so many pop culture references. We're not even 5 or 7 minutes in. Is wild. Lauren Jackson coming back. She is one of 3 members of the Australian, either men's or she's the only woman. And there's 2 men on the Australian men's basketball team that will be making their 5th appearance. 5 Olympics. Wow. Talk about longevity.
Yeah, like one thing, especially when with Lauren, she balled out in the World Cup in 2022.
Sure did.
I feel like everyone was like, "Oh my God, she's still getting it like that." And I think in the bronze medal game, I could be mistaken. I think she had like 30 and 15, some wild
Crazy.
in that game.
Crazy.
And to see Lauren making it back at this stage is so fascinating. And I think especially for the Opals team, like they're a veteran team, but to have someone who's been through all these Olympic runs, has seen basketball in like every iteration of professional basketball you could think of, LJ has seen it through her vantage point. So having that player there is going to be really fantastic. And, one player, speaking of the Opals, that I'm really excited to see back on the sort of international stage is our pal Beck Allen.
I knew you were going there. I knew you were going there.
I remember in 2022, like she was balling out in the World Cup before she got injured. Like I was like, wow, this like Beck Allen, you can do that in the WNBA. But then she wound up going to Connecticut and everything changed up there. But it's like Beck in that stage is so good. Like her, yeah. I think seeing her in that stage, she can sort of like unlock a different level of her game that she may not get to do here in the United States. And I think, especially for any player in the Olympic setting, you get to sort of like flex the muscles, turn up in different ways and be utilized in different ways. So seeing her in this setting, I think it's going to be really fascinating. Ezzy has put together a fantastic 2-year run, and this Olympics, I think, is going to be a big showcase for her to really sort of show that, hey, she's still one of the very best bigs on the planet. So I think it's going to be really fun. Like I'm excited to see what's gonna happen when the games tip off in a couple weeks.
I agree. I also want to say, of course, we know that Team France, we knew they were going to be in the tournament because they are the hosts. But we have a few players that our fans over here on Gotta Get Up, a podcast for New York Liberty fans, I am sure will be excited to hear about. And the first one is, of course, Marine Johannes.
Mm-hmm.
MJ, the magician.
Yes. Like, I feel like, because we, like, MJ, speaking of 2022, she got hurt right before it started, so we didn't get to see her in that setting. And I think seeing Marine, like, for a lot of fans, we haven't seen her since the finals last year. Like, she's been playing, but it's sort of hard to sort of keep up with French leagues here in the USA, especially now that we're in season. So this is going to be a lot of fans' first time seeing her in quite some time. So that excitement is going to be built in. And, one thing that Marine talked about, Eric, at Exits, Erica, you were there too when she said it, was that she was really going to try to work to be better off ball. So I'm excited to see what her improvement process has been like over the past 9 months. So it's going to be really fascinating to see what she does in that setting. And I know for our Seattle fans, they're going to get to see Gabby for the first time in a while. And prior, like I feel like I'm thinking back to the pod you and our pal Jackie did last year about prioritization, and it's like That's a player in Gabby who she fits so many teams like a glove. Like she does everything you want at that forward position. And now we get to watch her again play. And I think we're all going to be excited to see what she does on defense, especially against all the great elite perimeter scorers here in USA and in other countries. So seeing her is going to be really solid. I think another Liberty prospect, Marine Fato. I call her Marine F because I'm bad with names. Like
Uh-huh.
seeing her in the guard position, Raquel Ferreira, like it's gonna be a lot of good Liberty representation. So for the
Yes.
Liberty fans who are like, I wonder what the Liberty have cooking overseas, we get to watch via Team France.
That's it. That's it. And you hit on that. I think that we've seen different times and different pockets in WNBA history. We've had, a pioneering international player here or there, but I will say Jonathan Kolb and sorry to anyone who is a Chicago fan, but I do think James Wade had a little bit of this as well because of his relationship to France, and he lives there with his family.
Yes.
I think most recently Chicago, but on a whole nother level, Jonathan Kolb and his staff have really leaned into the looking at prospects that are not from North America,
Yeah. And I
which is
think
really interesting. Go ahead.
yeah, and I think it's really fascinating because like roster spots are so hard to come by in the league, and if prospects don't work out here, you can definitely keep an eye out and make sure that you have that footprint in other countries.
Exactly.
One thing I'm thinking about on the international level is that she didn't make the team this year, but a player like Stephanie Mawali has been in camp the past 2 years. So, one day in particular, Japanese media came and Sandy gave them a really extensive time talking about Stephanie, her game, how she is as a person. So I think that as an organization for Liberty, if you're able to get those footprints and imprints in various locations, you're sort of communicating to international players that this is a league I want to come to. This is an organization I want to be a part of because they take care of the players who are here. They make them feel welcome. They make them feel supported. They give them opportunities to sort of like work on their game. So I think being able to have that international touch, I think is magnificent as far as magnificent on the roster level. And I think magnificent on the world building franchise level as far as like maintaining talent.
Yeah, for sure. I'm just gonna put in the chat here for everyone watching with us live. The I cannot spell, so forgive that forgive that typo. Roster tracker. Speaking and typing at the same time is hard. The FIBA roster tracker.
Mm.
Apologies there. But so we have Australia. We talked about Belgium is another team. I actually talked about them on CBS Sports because again, Kelsey Plum's heel. They might have a grievance with Kelsey Plum's heel. But Julie Aleman, Emma Mieseman, I've always been super high on her game. Julie Van Loo, just some names that especially WNBA fans might be familiar with. We talked again about Team Canada a little bit, I believe, last week, but
Mhm.
Natalie Achanwa, such a veteran. I mean, she's a young player, relatively speaking, for the international stage, which tends to skew a little older.
Yeah.
But Natalie Achanwa has been a pioneering player, I think, since about 16 with. Team Canada. Kayla Alexander and Achanwa not in the league at the moment, but have of course played in the league. Bridget Carlton, Aaliyah Edwards is huge. Kia Nurse, just to name a few. We talked about France. Germany will also be there. And so Leo has been named to that roster. Gulich, Marie Gulich is a name people might be familiar with. And the Sabali sisters. So
Mhm.
Niara and Satu on that roster. So it'll be very interesting to see where both of them are, Brian, in their recovery. So I want to talk about Satu before I lay low and give you the floor since I know you've got the eyes and ears in Brooklyn. But we have seen that Satu has been making some appearances at practice and during shoot arounds, so hopefully is on track with her progress after what was a shoulder surgery. But what have we been seeing and hearing from Niara?
Yeah, Niara's been making steady progress. Like over the past couple days and weeks, like she's been working out with the team, like she's been active in practice, like she's getting closer and closer. Her official designation for this weekend's game starting tomorrow is questionable, so she's
Right.
drawing pretty close to being back. So I think for when, if and when she does come back before the break, it'll be interesting to see how the team manages her minutes, manages the rotations, because especially when she was out, the rotations took on a different flow. And then when the other players are out, the rotations adjusted. So like now we're sort of getting back into like that natural sort of stasis, if you will, of everyone getting back into like particular roles. So it'll be interesting to see how many minutes she plays. And especially with the games leading up to the break, it's just like you got giants on the other side in Connecticut and Chicago. So having a big who can sort of like run the court as well as she does and do those things would be a nice little change of pace for New York. So it'll be fun to see what the next couple of days looks like for her.
Yeah, I appreciate you weighing in there. So other teams that have named their roster per FIBA, Nigeria, Japan. We haven't talked about those two, but Evelyn and Stephanie Mawuli, excuse me, names you might recognize on Nigeria. I think this is interesting because I've seen reports, and I don't know how. I have to do a little more digging. But I think, talked about on Gotta Get Up, a podcast for New York Liberty fans, that Arike Ogunbowale removed herself from eligibility ahead of the last handful of camps. Yeah, we talking about camp. Camp. Let me stop. So she removed herself and has talked about a kind of a la what Candace Parker has said, the politics of USAB. Now, I saw some reports not corroborated or substantiated anywhere in my reporting, at least as of yet, but we've heard this about the Ogumike sisters in the past, and apparently now with Ogunbowale, could they be tapped to Team Nigeria? Now, the reason that could even be out there is for the same reasons that we know with USAB, whether it's 3x3 with Ryan Howard, who we know has missed time, or even with Nafisa Collier. Now, with plantar fasciitis, that is something you can work through. It's not comfortable. It's extremely painful. However, that being said, you can work through it. But also, Cheryl Reeve is her head coach in the WNBA.
Yep.
Now, do you want to work through it? And that's where the toss-up goes. If I was a betting woman, I would put money on Fee going. But let's just live in an alternate universe. We don't wish any injury upon anyone, but let's live in an alternate universe where, let's just say, Fafisa Collier cannot make the USA roster.
Yeah.
Who do you bring in? And it sounds like that's what people are asking, whether Team Nigeria might want to bring in Arike or even NECA. Now, that's interesting. Again, haven't heard anything, but something to keep an eye on. I'm not sure. I feel like, why would you wait, right? If they were going to play for your team,
Yeah.
I think you'd probably want people to know that, right, Brian?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think especially, it's like bringing in, not that she's like a ringer, but it's like you're bringing in someone at the last minute and then being like, hey, I need you to get us 25 a night. Like, you haven't worked with anybody here at all. So you just
they say to give the ball to you.
Yeah. Grab that jersey. Yeah. It's gonna be like, hey, grab that jersey one time, make sure you have some shoes that fit, and then come rock out. Like, it's tough sledding, especially against pretty much all the countries have extensive chemistry and years of experience together. So just like plugging someone in at the last minute and being like, hey, go and get it. Like, that's tough business. And I think it would be almost mission impossible for her to succeed if she did wind up going that route. But stranger things have happened.
Stranger things indeed. So only time will tell, but we know we will see NECA at least when it comes to All-Star. She will be representing Team WNBA. And shout out to Beta Basket. I will say this now. We've been teasing it, and if you're in our Slack channel, you already know. Also, the link for to join us on Slack. I will make sure to start it and pin it for y'all. But we have a new contributor, and the brainchild, the mind, the engine, a la AT, the engine for CT, behind Beta Basket is Roberta Rodriguez, and will be joining us at Black Rosie Media to help us with women's basketball Olympic coverage. And then we'll stay on board because we are bringing you a Seattle Storm specific podcast, name to be determined. So again, join us in Slack if you want to be a part of that conversation. But welcome, welcome, welcome. We are so excited to have Oreta on. It's an honor. We appreciate you joining us, and you will hear from us on things Seattle Storm, including, listen, this is a podcast for New York Liberty fans, Brian, and folks been coming down on teaspoon. So we already had a conversation, and you'll hear that tomorrow on Black Rosie Media on our to be determined or to be named Seattle Storm podcast. But I want you to weigh in here. Ding ding, weigh in. The Seattle Storm get the split with Chicago, and in no small part because Camila Cardozo on the bench coaches decision effectively. And even Noel Quinn, the head coach of the Seattle Storm, actually, Roberta was the one to ask, was like, hey, rebounds were better this time. And Noe was like, well, Cardozo wasn't on the court. That certainly helped. Yeah. So what's your assessment of how things went down in the game? And then second question, Brian, what's your assessment of how things went down in the eye of public opinion, aka social media?
Yeah, as far as game flow goes, I tend to always defer to coach's judgment when it comes to like pulling a starter and having your bench rock out. I think especially, we've run into this problem here where it's like, oh, the star player isn't doing well, but they're still out there, and it's like, it's not going right. So I think for a coach, you always have to trust their judgment, like good or bad. And I think especially, Spoon has been with the team and knows them front to back. So I think within the context of that game, if she felt that there was different combinations that worked, I think that's okay. And I think to the broader social media point, I feel like we have to we got to cut the sky some slack, because I feel like by and large, like, Erica and I, we talked to someone who was in New York when the Sky were here, and she was like, I don't think they're gonna be any good. And it's like, wow, these cats might mess around and make the playoffs. So it's like, I feel like we can't boom on Spoon like that, because like I feel like everyone was gonna be like, hey, this team ain't gonna be any good this year. And the fact that they're competitive, like she's gotten like the lottery pick potential that we saw out of Kennedy Carter in 2020 is paying off in a big way. And I think a lot of that is thanks to Spoon's nurturing and nourishment of her. So I think that I think we got to give her like a bit of a break. Like, you can disagree with a strategy and not be like, oh, she got to get off her job. And I think
calling for her job, it's wild.
Yeah, and she's still like she's been an assistant for a long time, and she's been an all-time great player. But I think you also have to give the first-year person who's fully in charge of the operation some leeway as well too. So if there's like mistakes along the way, if there's sometimes strategy or if sometimes the team doesn't look as organized as you may like, it's like, okay, everyone here is figuring each other out still. Like chemistry is always fluid and it's always building. So you can be together for like 5 minutes or 5 years. You're still going to need to work on chemistry. So I think for the Sky team in particular, you want to make sure that you give her time, let the lineup sort of come together in the way they need to, and sort of trust how they're able, players and coaches can handle those crunch time situations together. And then I think that as they get more seasoned, we can be like, okay, here's how I wish you would have did it differently. Like, I think there's still room to like discuss, of course, like as long as you're like being fair about it. But I think just be like, oh, Spoon ain't no good. Like, nah, don't do that. And then you have to have
Yeah.
Angel deal with more social media antics and people. And then she's like, hey, that's my coach. Don't even think about it.
Don't even do
So,
it. Yep.
yeah.
It's wild. So, but to go to what Aloysius is saying, I'm gonna pull up here. So the for those who are not familiar, the Chicago Sky and the Seattle Storm effectively played a mini series. So they played on Friday. You can see that the Chicago Sky, somewhat surprisingly, I would maybe argue, get the 88-84 win over the Seattle Storm. Now, if we slide on down, we're going to slide on down here. Look at these minutes. Camila, over 30 minutes played, 9 points. Okay, bong, 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 8 rebounds. All right. And then if we slide on over here, then you see in their next game, Seattle gets the win 2 days later. Same arena. And then we take a look. Oh, scusi. Oh, didn't mean to do that either. You know I love my lead tracker though. So we're gonna keep that there. You know I love my lead tracker, but that's not what I wanted to show. I wanted to show let's go box score. Bong. So you go to box score and then you slide on down. Camila less than 20 minutes. And that's what had the interwebs angry. That's what had the interwebs upset. And that is a very noticeable difference. And I think we all can say that. And we're about to talk about that when it comes to the New York Liberty. Holy cannoli. You want to talk about night and day. And you're not going to beat a team. You play them 4 times, 2 times, 3 times, however many times. You might win 4 out of 5, but you might not get all of them. Let's remember, this is a pro league. That being said, it was very noticeable that Camila only played, like I said, less than 20 minutes. So, yep, couldn't get a rebound when she was on the floor. So, that's what it is. Oh, hey, hello. We have a new listener/viewer. Hello, Miss Pinky Lee Davis. Erica and Brian, this is my first time viewing your podcast. Well, thank you so much. We appreciate you coming through. Are you supporters of the New York Liberty or the Connecticut Sun? Well, we are both native New Yorkers. This is also Gotta Get Up, a podcast for New York Liberty fans. That being said, we've already talked about a mutual between the Connecticut Sun and the New York Liberty in Beck Allen. And we talk about the WNBA holistically. So right now we're in what we call our shoot around, which is where we're talking about topics that are not specific to the New York Liberty. And so, yes, this is definitely a podcast for New York Liberty fans. We also have a podcast that we have coming up for Seattle Storm fans. And the hope is that we'll grow to get a podcast for every WNBA team. But I think we pretty much answer your question. We both cover the New York Liberty. We both grew up in New York, and this just happens to be a podcast for New York Liberty fans. So we definitely talk about New York Liberty topics. But I like to think, Brian, that we give a fair assessment of the New York Liberty, and we're gonna have to do that today because, that loss to Indiana, I have so many thoughts.
Yeah. It's there are like so many different sort of like avenues we can explore about Saturday's game. So I'm excited to sort of delve into that. And for the Connecticut fans out there, we like them. Like, I was supposed to head up to Knoxville tomorrow, but the way my sleep has been set up is like, hey, I gotta like
a long trip.
I gotta get to Penn Station by 5:00. I'm like, dog.
Child. No. It's like you think it's like, oh, it's in Connecticut, not too bad. No. It's like the side of Connecticut that you're basically in Boston. So that's a trek, especially coming from Brooklyn. Like, I know Brooklyn is in the boroughs, but like, this, Brian, like all boroughs are not created equal when it comes to trying to get to them bridges and tunnels, depending where you're trying to go. Yeah. You feel me? Like, if you're in Harlem and I'm just saying, you got to go to certain parts of Jersey, you might think about it twice. And that's the same with Brooklyn, trying to go to Connecticut. You really trying to live that life? I don't know. Yeah. So, there's some interesting comments in here. we're not making any indictment over Camilla and Angel Reese. We're not doing that
Yeah,
on this podcast because
yeah,
number one, this is not a podcast for Chicago Sky fans. Number two, they don't do that with each other, so I'm not going to start the fire. I don't. They're quite literally teammates, and I think honestly, the Chicago Sky play best when those two are in tandem. So anyway,
yeah.
we're gonna keep it cute. Brian. All right,
Yes.
let's just get into it. We go in playing Indiana on CBS actually. So it was a big thing on CBS Sports side of things. Uh Going in playing Indiana on a winning streak. And we just saw Vegas had their streak stopped at, I believe it was 6 wins. We were trying to get to 6 wins in the New York Liberty. Um could make it happen.
Yeah.
Now, is this a matter of, hey, Indiana has been getting increasingly better? I think we can say that with fact.
Mhm.
Um, you know, we can say that. And I think some of the things that we said have been a bugaboo for the New York Liberty came back to bite them. Very slow start
Yeah.
and a not great finish.
Yeah. One thing that it's so odd that they just started off like so flat. Like I thought the process was sound early as far as like them getting good looks. It just wasn't going. And then
Mm.
Caitlin started off like a house on fire. I think it was 10-1 before the first. I think either TV
Yeah.
or coach timeout. It was definitely a really slow start there. They gradually found their bearings throughout the game, and there was an interesting lineup combination that I thought really worked, which we'll probably get to in a little bit. Like they gradually started figuring things out, and then it looked like they were right about to sort of like hit the turbo and run away with the lead, but then they got cold at the worst time. Like the shots, like like I think throughout the game, I kept saying to myself, like, this is good process. Like I see where you're going. I see the thought process here. I see the opening, and I see that it's a good shot, but it just wasn't falling. And then
Mhm.
every time, like there was like one sequence over the course of like 4 possessions, 2 on New York and 2 on Indiana side, where Stewie missed 2 wide open 3-pointers, and then each time Indiana got immediate layups right after. So that's like a nice juicy 10-point swing right there, like things like that, like that late turnover and like when the ball bounced off B's foot.
Oh,
And
Benaglin,
it's
yeah,
such
that was
a shame
brutal.
because B was like carrying the team in that fourth quarter. Like every time they needed a basket, B took the rock, made it work. So you saw that it would have been a game where they would have sort of like pulled like the rabbit out of their hat in the last second if they did hold on. But I would say that ultimately there was like enough mistakes in there, and almost like they sort of sped themselves up a bit as far
Oh,
as like
that game was super fast at times,
yeah,
and I was not expecting, honestly, for that pace. I don't think we are fooling ourselves in saying that a super quick lightning speed pace like we saw in that game at stretches is going to benefit the New York Liberty.
yeah.
We've talked about pace for the New York Liberty, and that's just not their game. I
Mhm.
would love them to play a little bit quicker at times, or at least be able to keep up with that, but they were being forced into that pace. And
Yeah,
that is where, and I see it in the comments a little bit, where Caitlin Clark, people don't talk about her speed, and how she can push the pace. And she also speeds up teams because she can shoot from dang near everywhere. I mean,
yeah,
she literally did a segment with Sue Bird where she was shooting from the stands. I mean, there was no defense and no fans, obviously, and she couldn't actually do that in a WNBA game. But the point is, the child can shoot from anywhere,
yep,
and you got to respect that. But when she's bringing the ball up and just gonna let that thing fly, you got to respect that. And the New York Liberty at times, I think that really hurt them. We go back and forth when it comes to Sandy Brondello. I'm still team Sandy. I'm holding it down for Sandy. I understand why, people might say this, and I think this is a comment with respect to Sandy Brondello, but I think it goes back to what we were saying about Teaspoon.
Mhm.
And we're in a situation, Brian, I think right now where I do think Sandy and the overall New York Liberty are changing things that didn't work and that ended up being their downfall late in the season last year. I do think they're making those changes. And, we're not talking about more money, but we talking about, more resources, more problems. and now they have to learn how to refine and correct those things.
Yeah.
So, like you said, the some people have, or you talked about the turnover, specifically off of Lainey Hamilton's foot. Now that was a very inopportune turnover because of where the New York Liberty were. They were starting to gain momentum, and that felt like a dagger.
Yeah.
And Brian, cumulatively, the turnovers weren't great.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that it was an inopportune turnover, but it was just like I would say that didn't cost him the game. Like it was just one of those cumulative things where it's like, oh, we're missing free throws in ways that we normally don't in the fourth quarter.
Right.
That doesn't happen typically. Our MVP went 3 for 11 and missed a bunch of wide open shots. That don't happen like that very often. Like our best play, our guard got her voice back and started barking at the refs because they got on her nerves, and she got a technical for it. She barks at the refs, which is great because her voice is back, but she usually doesn't get teed up. So it's like, oh boy, this happened. Like KT has been on fire from 3-point range, and she got open looks, but just one going in, one falling in. Like Leo is usually amazing. She struggled in her time out there, so Sandy went with KT to close out, and Leo usually doesn't struggle like that because she's been a house of fire for the past month and a half. So it's like everything sort of like it's almost like door A and door B, and then every time you open door B, something bad happens, and that usually doesn't happen. So it was like all of those things coming together all at once, and then it's like, oh wow, like we're out of time. And
exactly that. But I think also, while I do agree with you, this to me, you can't have this.
Yeah.
You can't have this. This is the flow chart. So this is, game, a lot of everything from score to just pace, possession. Everything was all Indiana early on. You see a little blip here. And then, in fairness, the New York Liberty were able to erase some of that. But then, boom, clutch time. The New York Liberty look rattled. And good on Indiana, because let's keep it a buck. Indiana, especially last season, a little less this season, although those Chicago games, they have been able to keep it close, but they couldn't come up in clutch time. They didn't have that problem against New York. So what you're saying, Brian, things that are uncharacteristic, that don't usually happen for New York, happened. And things that don't usually happen, and it just so happens on the positive side, that don't usually happen, that Indiana is still learning to do, they clicked against New York.
Yeah, it's just one of those like bad break. It's like a bad beat where it's like, oh, I thought I had it, didn't have it. And I would say I think cakewalk is, I wouldn't necessarily go that far, because one of the things in the pregame Saturday morning, Sandy was like, yo, they're a better team. Like, if we win, we're not going to beat them by 40 again. Like, that's not going to happen this time, because like they've gotten better. And even leading up into the game, I think Indiana was like third in the W in offense behind Vegas and New York over the past after they lost that game in Barclays at the beginning of June during Cup play. Like, their offense has been much improved. So that number 3 overall in that time span from then to now. So you've gotten to see the fever start to put it together. Like Sandy mentioned in her pregame, that Aaliyah Boston is better and is more in shape than what she was by that point, which I found to be very interesting, but we'll get to that another day. So she's gotten better. Kelsey Mitchell is fully back engaged and doing things well.
People forget that Kelsey Mitchell was a non-factor early. And yes, Caitlin Clark was struggling, but like, people need to remember and understand that, I mean, Kelsey Mitchell trying to remind folks that Indiana been her team for a minute. So it's been her team for a minute. I agree with you. Were they thinking cakewalk? And we're going to get into, obviously, I have the Super Bowl quote in here, and I really want to get your thoughts on that. But I don't think they thought it was going to be a cakewalk. And if they did, they learned real quick.
Yeah.
They learned this real quick. Just a reminder, because we're getting, I guess, the title of the show is probably the reason, but you are now watching Black Rosie Media, which is a channel to empower Black women and melanated creators in sports media. Specifically, you're watching our Gotta Get Up show, which is a podcast for New York Liberty fans. Just as a reminder, we welcome everyone, but been getting that question a lot in the comments. So, yes, triple double, first WNBA rookie triple double for Caitlin Clark, and huge accomplishment. Her and Angel Reese have been effectively going back and forth in a lot of the power rankings for Rookie of the Year, and this is another reason to show. I see in the comments, Caitlin Clark is a rising star. I don't think anyone in their right mind ever doubted that she would be.
Yeah.
And it took some time. This Indiana team took some time. You want to talk about someone who people have been calling for her job since day one. I mean, Christy Sides. Woo, child. I hope she got someone to talk to, because folks been coming for her.
Because I remember when Christy was in New York last time, we were talking to her. It was right after the whole fracas with Chicago happened. So we caught Indiana at a really particular, fraught time for them as a team. But I thought that for Christy, it seems like she's been putting in good principles for them. She's like the spacing is a lot better. We're more in tune. We're doing things it's not showing yet, but I see it coming together. So I think for her, she's really had to sort of manage a lot. And I think we might have talked about it a while back, but one thing that I think, if the Fever wind up making the playoffs, a moment that I think is really going to sort of come to mind for me at least is when she called them all out after they lost in Connecticut. She was like, yo, nobody showed up tonight. No one did anything. You guys you guys had that win in Washington the game before. Y'all didn't do anything. Y'all didn't show up. There was no effort. Where's the professional pride at, essentially? And I always think to myself, you got one time to do something like that before the team either reacts or you lose them permanently. And it looks like they've all bought in. And I think that that's a testament to her and her ability. You think,
I'm sorry. I'm just looking at some of the comments, but we'll get to that. Yeah. No, sorry. You're good. No, you're right. No, I think you're right. What you're basically saying is, listen, a coach gonna hit that button, now, I don't want to say panic button, but I'm gonna give you the business button if that's a button. Mm-hmm. You can only hit that. What you have to be selective, because then it becomes this thing where it's you versus your team. Yeah. And sometimes, if we're being honest, through coach psychology, sometimes coaches will do that on purpose. They'll be like, no, I'm not your friend. I'm your coach. Go talk to your teammates about that. Yeah. Let them pick you up. Let them pick you up. You know what I'm saying? Like that. And so I do think, again, you can look at the standings, the fact that they were able to beat Phoenix. Indiana has been on a rise. Now, here's the thing. And Damien, here we go. I just saw your comment, because I know the first person I thought of, Brian, after that loss, he was thinking about the homie Damien. He was thinking about the homie Damien. Been riding with us since last season. And I think this is an important point here. You learn your lesson. We're going to get into the comments in a minute, but if you face them again, you gotta, this to me, unacceptable. I don't care who you're playing. This to me is unacceptable. I don't understand how you let someone run you off the court 10-1.
Yeah.
10-1 before Stewie got a field goal. Yeah. That's crazy. That's crazy. You want to talk about, we were talking about, Christy Sides. I hope Sandy let him know, because this is unacceptable.
Yeah. They're a group that knows better to sort of loaf off like that to start with. And I think that as they sort of got their bearings, it's like, okay, now we're in it. But then you run into the problem of having to burn so much energy to sort of get yourself back in the game. You wind up running out of gas later, because
exactly,
your margin for error is essentially non-existent. So you have
what this shows. Yeah, that's what this chart shows. Because listen, they could have come away with it, but that last little blip.
Yep.
That's and here's the thing. Do I think it was an unacceptable loss because of what the Liberty is capable of? This is not taking anything away from Indiana. Indiana did what they had to do, especially early. And then what did they do? They hung around long enough, did what they had to do, applied pressure when they needed to. So, but again, this has got to get up a podcast for New York Liberty fans. So we're going to give you the New York Liberty analysis first and likely most often. The New York Liberty know they're better than that.
Mm-hmm.
Period. They didn't make shots. They made poor decisions. They allowed themselves to get sped up. And I don't remember if it was Damien who put this in the chat a little earlier. I'm going to try and find it. But who is the vocal leader? Here we go. Who should the vocal leader be for the New York Liberty team? And that's a great question. And you know what? I feel like we've been kind of skirting around this question for the last few weeks because we've been talking about who should be the go-to. We've even talked about who is the floor general. And I do think Sabrina Ionescu has been taking on more of that responsibility because of all of the things Courtney Vandersloot has been through, if we're being honest, in the last 2 seasons. And to me, specific to this question, I do think that the mouthpiece, the inspirational piece, the team member that's gonna be like, yo, we gotta snap back. To me, that's probably Stewie.
Yeah, I was thinking the same way. Like, you want the sort of franchise bellwether to be the person to be like, okay, we got to get it right, and we got to get it right now. And I think that we saw a little bit of that in the Minnesota game. It wasn't like that's a loss for us. Like, okay, you lost a better team tonight, but you saw when Stewie hit the button, you saw the team just sort of rise with her to meet that moment. And I think that when she didn't have it like that on Saturday, it made it a little bit tougher. And Benaisha was the one who sort of picked up in her absence. And, and being around the team, like B is the one who is almost like the captain of the defense in a sense, where she's like guiding everyone to where they need to be, making sure everyone's doing what they need to do. So I think that for them, it's a situation where I think they've said it like this too, like they're all leaders in a sense, where it's like, okay, you're here, like talk, do what you need to do, really communicate well. So I think we wouldn't necessarily have to put it on one person per se, but I think it's almost like a collective knowing where everyone knows, okay, we got to do this right. Okay, we're getting beat in transition way too often.
Oh my gosh. I was fitting to break everything in my apartment looking at the transition buckets that Indiana got. Just because there was one time where she was back, but she didn't see, I forget who took the shot. It might have been Mitchell. I don't remember exactly, but she did not see that the guard that was running for Indiana toward their basket was on the flank. Like she was clogged in the middle. I'm just like, fam, like you got to pick up. You got to pick, like, good on you to get back, but like it don't mean nothing if you're not nowhere near the person who's furthest advanced for Indiana. I was like, yo, some of the defense, especially in transition, I was just like, are y'all really trying to win this game? Like, are y'all really trying to win this game? What's going on?
Yeah, it struck me as a lot of like it's like you're expecting them to just like make a mistake and it's less you executing the way you're supposed to, which I think was a really sort of like sharp contrast from the Minnesota game, where it's like you knew that if every time you made a mistake, they're gonna punish you for it. So everyone's sort of like level of focus rose as the game got more intense. And I think it's a situation where I would say that they let too many slips happen, and they know, because they've been in games against elite teams where they've met that moment and reduced those errors by a tremendous amount. They know not to like make those mistakes. Like, for the game tomorrow, they played a close game up there the first time, and everyone's execution was like A+ that entire game. So they know what it's like to get like this collective body of a team, like these players together. They know what to do in those situations. So it was a little bit surprising to see them sort of like fall into like bad mistakes that they normally don't make.
Yeah, I mean, there are some other comments that I definitely want to get to, but let's get to the elephant in the room. And also, I think this is interesting. I think when Sabrina said it was their Super Bowl, that was sort of telling. Was it not your Super Bowl? Were you not trying? Okay, there's a few things here. Do I think the effort was there in the game against Indiana for New York? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. Realistically, do I think anyone was or should have thought of this game as their Super Bowl? No. Like, come on. Now, Sab said what she said. And I think, right, there are things that you say knowing full and well that they're hyperbolic.
Hmm.
And this likely fell into that category, right? She wanted to emphasize that this win meant a lot more in her estimation to Indiana than it did to New York. And quite frankly, they played like it meant a lot more. And that's in at least partially why they got the dang win.
Yeah.
Because their game wasn't, like, to your point, their game wasn't perfect. Their execution wasn't flawless. It was pretty solid. But New York was very beatable. New York was very beatable. So were they trying? I'm not ever going to say that a pro team is not trying. I'm not personally going to ever say that because, like, no. Of course, in my opinion, of course they're trying. I'm giving them the benefit of the doubt. Was their effort enough? No. No. But I want to go to you, Brian. What did you make when you first heard the comments from Sabrina Ionescu?
Initially, I thought it was hilarious. I was like, I wound up doing it in a reverse order. So like, I saw people pissed at Sabrina again. I'm like, what they mad about? And then I saw a quote and I was like, y'all mad about that? Like, calm down, guys. And then I saw the video and I'm like, she's not even. I was like, oh, she praised them like one sentence after. Like, everyone's fine. Like,
Yeah.
no.
Yeah. It wasn't that deep. It wasn't that serious. Now, was it at a level where Kelsey Plum was telling folks that the New York Liberty didn't care for each other? It wasn't on that level for me. Yeah. And like, I understand because you know, like in real time, I was like, wait, she said what now?
Yeah.
About Kelsey Plum. I was like, wait a minute, no, she didn't. You know, and it's understandable from any one perspective. You'd be like, wait a minute. But here's the thing. I was tight after a finals win, or for the Aces, finals loss for the New York Liberty. And then people saying that, how you know what the other locker room is like? You feel me?
Yeah.
Like, that was just wild to me. And I got in my feels and then I let it go. This, I think, to your point too, I was like, oh dang, like she, like, it was like, you know, mild shade. Let's keep it real. I could understand why people would take it that way.
Yeah.
And, you know, sometimes you also say things. I talked about being hyperbolic, but you also say things to like express like, okay, we lost. Next.
Yeah. And I think also, like, I'll say, to be fair, like, they've lost Indiana, like their first home game in this brand new era, they lost by like 40 to this team. And then that was the same game when in the first quarter, Aaliyah Boston shoved John Quill and JJ hit her with the, hey, don't think about that, young blood. What do you think you're doing? And she said that she would also do some things to Aaliyah, that this is a family podcast, that so we cannot repeat what JJ said to her in that moment. So if you find it, you'll see it. So it's a moment for Indiana where it's like, hey, man, they've been knocking us around for like 2 years. Like, we lost every game to them last year. I think going in, they'd lost maybe like 7 straight games to Liberty because they lost.
I think it was closer to 9.
Yeah,
it was like 8 or 9, something like that.
They hadn't beat this team in a long time. Like last year in the home opener, Stewie hit them for a franchise record. Another time, she hit them for another 40 piece. The game to close up the season last year between these two teams, Indiana made this furious run to get it to overtime, and then all of a sudden, Sabrina quashed them in overtime. So Indiana, this team and those players have seen the Liberty sort of bully them a little bit for the past 2 years. So you want to get it, you want to get your get back. Like they're professionals with pride. Like, you lose to a team up as like, hey, I want to get at them. Like, I want to make sure that I get this win, and I really want to. You know, and they're the best team in the league right now. That best team in the league. The only
everybody coming for you. Yep.
Everybody coming for you. Game is on CBS. Everybody's watching. I think I saw record viewing for this time slot for CBS for the WNBA. So the eyes of the world are on you. Sold out crowd cheering you on. And
might be your dang Super Bowl.
Yeah, everything lined up, and then just to sort of like,
I mean, it's also kind of wild though to say that as far as like an Indiana team in the Super Bowl. Like, I mean, I know a little something about football, a little something. But anyway,
walking through that door.
That's true. And they hadn't been home for a minute. They were on the road warriors. Like,
yeah, everything lined up. And something funny I saw.
Okay, see, but this is what I'm talking about. Okay, so it's 3-1. Okay. Okay, you got that one game. Go for it. Congratulations.
Something funny I saw after. I saw from a writer named Whitney Medworth. She was at the game. She said that afterwards, like people were like honking their horns and waving their flags in the parking lot after the game. I was like,
so maybe Sabrina ain't lie. She knew something about Indiana. I ain't never been to Indiana, so I don't know what be going down there.
Okay, all right. Is this safe space? This is safe space, right?
Oh, you were in Indiana earlier this year, right?
Like people knock Indiana. I'm like, why y'all treat the Hoosier State so bad? I was there for like a week. It's nice. Like I went to a nice little museum. Like it's good. Like the photos are. I'm like, hey. This is like, it's no public transportation for me, which I'm like, I get some, hey, fix that up over there. But that's another podcast to get to. But I'm like, Indiana, I'm like, that's fine. Gamebridge is a nice arena. They have a good sort of like Tamika Catchings in there. Like,
I love that. Also, okay, hold on. On another podcast, I'm gonna need someone to explain to me how you build a temporary pool. Because didn't Gamebridge held Olympic qualifiers? Because they had Caitlin Clark. She went and touched the water. I'm like, wait, what? How do you do that? What are they like? What do you just do? What is? I'm trying to my mind couldn't go there. Like I'm like, I need to see a video. Like someone show me a video of how you put that big an Olympic size. Like we literally talking Olympic size temporary pool. Like, and not like a cute little pool where we gonna like splash around playing Marco Polo. No, these fools were out there doing laps. That's wild to me. Anyway, Jen, you get it. The Liberty are bound to lose some games. We gave them that game. Falling back on bad habits. All these things are true. Oh, it wasn't the same. Okay, but still, like that is a Colts stadium. That is not a swimming pool. I like someone show me the video. Someone show me the dang video. Okay, it wasn't Gamebridge, which makes a lot of sense because I was like, I didn't think Gamebridge was all that big. See, I don't know nothing about Indiana. I don't know nothing about nobody's Indiana. All I know is that Tamika Catchings has a tease me. That's her business. She got a tea shop. I think she still got it. I wouldn't jump in some pool like that above ground, Olympic size. Imagine if one of them walls fall down. No. Okay, I'm not the only one. Like, somebody has to have like a time lapse video, right? Like that to me is like an eighth wonder of the world. How you put up a temporary Olympic size pool for the qualifiers in a football stadium? Somebody send me the video. I need to know. Like, it's like how I go to Chicago, Brian. And we know ocean. We know about the ocean in New York.
Yes.
I go to Chicago and I go to the beach and I'm like, what you mean that's a lake? I cannot see the other side. I know it's a great lake, but what you mean? Like, I'm just like, I don't understand. I don't know. Is it squishy like a lake at the bottom, like a lake, or is it like sand, like a beach? Like there's just certain things that my mind is just like, it don't compute. Anyway, we went off the rails. Like, I mean, listen, I'm simple. Come on, when it comes to some things, Carmen. Don't hate me. I'm just like, I need to understand. Oh my gosh. No. No, is that a real thing? You think the water really turns colors? I have so many questions.
I would hope not. I feel like Olympic water must be like extra.
They're like, we not gonna put them on blast like that. Imagine. Imagine you just see a blue streak all the way and coming up in lane 3. Like, yo, why did we go off the rails? Okay, anyway, back. Okay, yes, because Damien, you're right. per usual, Damien putting us back on track here. This is a critical step for them. And they have some important games. Now, the Connecticut Sun has been a team where, maybe a little bit of the luster, a little bit of the shine has dulled a little bit. And we know Connecticut, they get the raw end of the stick, even if they are a number 2 team and they've been consistently in the top 2, but they get a raw end of the deal. And so this could be a game where Connecticut and all of their respect CT, they might come for some things tomorrow. Both teams 17-4, Brian, going into this matchup. What do you think is going to be key?
Something that I'm thinking about as he mentioned that, in the first game, Alyssa Thomas was mic'd up, and early in the first quarter, she was saying to her team, "Yo, we got to wake up. Like, we cannot afford to doze off against the team. They're way too good." So Connecticut is this is the matchup they want. Like, this is the team that they're chasing for. This is a team that's given them trouble for the past 2 years. Like, across the 4 regular season games last year and the playoffs in this season, Connecticut's gone 1-8 against the Liberty in the past 2 years. So Connecticut, if they're to make that leap and get back to the finals, they're gonna have to go to Liberty. Like, they're gonna have to beat them in New York and maintain that home court advantage, because they got the game 1 last year and that was it. Game 2 they lost. Game 3 and 4 Liberty took in Connecticut. So the Sun have a lot to prove to themselves. And you mentioned that lull that they were in not too long ago when they lost to Vegas and Seattle back to back. And in the Seattle game in particular, like, Connecticut's offense, like, their water just shut off. I think they wound up scoring only like 50 something points. And it's one of those situations for the Sun where it's like, oh my God, we don't really have another like A+ go get it scorer to really get us something and really sort of keep our offense on life support when it happens.
Pass with the receipts. The receipts.
Oh boy.
The receipts.
One goal I have in life is to not wind up on those Sun #disrespect montages.
Listen, right?
Whoever does their social media stuff, hey.
They be like taking notes.
Yeah.
Screenshots for days. Screenshots for days. I like what lean with it. Rock with it. Hey, let's go. Stewie and JJ got to figure out how to play together because they've both been too inconsistent. I still think you have to get JJ touches, Brian, early in the shot clock.
Yeah.
Early in the shot clock.
Yeah. A thought I had, something that I noticed that kind of worked for Liberty in the Indiana game. I wonder what you think about it. Like, because since Stewie didn't have it, Sandy went to KB, Kennedy Burke, a little bit more. And the lineup that they ran with, I think it was Sab, B, KT, KB, and JJ. I was like, yo, this is a great lineup. Like, it's working. You have Sabrina orchestrating the show. Laney's doing her scoring. Burke and Thornton can fly all over the place on defense. And JJ sort of like erases anything at the rim. Like, I think that it was working. And I think that if you have a situation where you try to sort of like unclog the paint a little bit more, you can sort of get JJ involved. Like, that was the correction they made. Like, in the Minnesota game at Barclays Center, that was the big correction from the first 2 games where they were able to sort of unclog the paint and get JJ involved all over the basketball court. So I think for the Liberty, it's just a matter of, I think one thing that is a little bit underappreciated about them is that they tend to learn pretty quickly after they screw up. Like, Chicago beat them the first regular season game in Barclays. They got it back together pretty quickly, and they made things really hard on them. Like, so I think that this is a group that's able to sort of like learn fast, adapt accordingly, and build out in response. So I think I'm looking forward to seeing how they have JJ operating in space tomorrow, because JJ, she's great all the time. And she's a battering ram when she sees her old team in Connecticut. Like,
right. I mean, it's like De'Erica Hamby versus the Aces, Uncle Jones versus the Sun.
Yep, like because I was in Uncasville for that first game, and man, it was a JJ masterpiece that night. Like everyone knew, okay, let me get it to JJ. Like JJ's gonna make it work. Like she's drawing Bree Jones out to the perimeter. Like she's hitting Sabrina, cutting to the basket. She's doing everything. Like if you could almost like create a picture perfect big, that would have been Jonquel Jones in that game. Like erasing every shot, hitting clutch 3-pointers, making awesome passes, clutch free throws, everything you want in a superstar player, JJ gave you in that game. And I think for the Liberty, I'm excited to sort of see how Sandy and the coaching staff sort of like you utilize her a little bit differently as compared to Indiana, because Connecticut is big. They're huge front court. Like Bree, AT, DB, long, strong, physical, and they can clog all sorts of passing lanes. So I'm excited to see how Jonquel is able to sort of get that early position in the post, like having her out in transition, getting those deep steals by the basket, and because when she gets the ball by the rim, automatic game over. So how they get her the ball in space, how JJ is able to adapt to those double and triple teams that are coming her way. So I think it's going to be really exciting to see what they do. I will say one thing for them, it's going to be. That game is starting at 11 a.m. I'm like, hey, have like 2 extra cups of coffee tomorrow morning when you get to the arena. Like, you got to get up bright and early. Look, we all getting up early. Like it takes me a couple hours to get locked in at work. You guys got a couple minutes. Like, have some coffee, make some tea, have some tea on the bench. Anything that gets the caffeine in you, gets you moving around. Do that.
Yep. I want to go to this. JJ didn't show up, and that's her fault. And can Brundello wake up the players and herself, Erica, since you still support Brundello? Yep, sure do. Sure do. Ain't no reason to hit that panic button. Ain't no reason to hit that panic button. Here's the thing. Sandy Brundello has always done this. Listen, she's not here. She's not corralling. She's not overcoaching. She's not micromanaging her teams, period. And your first part is exactly right. JJ didn't show up. There have been times where we talked about it. Sloot didn't show up. Stewie wasn't hitting her shots. She made correction to her shot so that she could hit her shots. Sab wasn't driving. She's made a correction. A coach does not play in the games. Ain't nothing Sandy Brundello could do about Benajelani Hamilton dribbling that ball off the inside of her foot. Sandy can't come up with a game plan for that. Those are things that are going to happen. So absolutely. Do I think, listen, I can't speak to what happens in the locker room. I do think Sandy Brundello has a way. Does she lean more into trusting her teammates than other or trusting her players, more than other coaches? Probably. My outside observation. That being said, she's not afraid to light into someone.
Yeah. Yeah, like one thing about Sandy is that, like,
I mean, listen, we got Indiana supporting Sandy. Like, how y'all the number 1 team and you got a trash coach? Like, that don't happen too often.
Yeah, I think one thing that happens, I think that sometimes, like, whenever the Liberty lose, and since it's so rare in between these days, it's like 22 cups of coffee. Man, I feel like it's one of those situations where it's like,
Courtney Vandersloot number of cups of coffee. Noted. Yes.
I feel like you'd be staying up to like Sunday night if you did that. So I'm always like, be careful. Like, have some, but not too much.
Not too much.
Yeah. And I think since the Liberty lose so infrequently, I think we sometimes have the situation where it's like we almost sort of catastrophize any losses where it's like, oh my God, everything is falling apart. And I'm like, it's like the loss is annoying, and the players definitely didn't do what they needed to do. But I think that,
absolutely not. Even Vegas don't want him back as coach. Yeah. Like you playing games. That was cute though. You tried it.
Cowboy Bill is off enjoying retirement somewhere.
Not Cowboy Bill. If you know, you know. Come on. I was picking up what you was throwing down there, Brian. Come on.
Yep. Yeah, so I think for this team,
that's what we need, right?
Yeah, so I think for this team, like being like you're at the top of the league, I kind of like 80s. Like
I'm with you.
I'm an
I'm in,
old,
but
so I'm
this is
like,
80s NBA because
yeah,
the W wasn't around. They talking
yeah,
about MNBA,
yes,
which would be, I guess, like late 90s, early 2000s WNBA.
yeah.
That being said, I mean, whether you like this style or not, I kind of do. We not taking Bill back. We not doing it.
Yeah, Bill is off
Damien,
somewhere.
we get it. We get it. You don't like Sandy Brondello. You don't like Sandy Brondello. It's cool.
Yeah, like I
It's
think
cool.
that yeah, like when you're 17-4 and the players all buy in, like the players care, they trust what she's doing. Like, because I think one thing to really see how good a coach is that when players who have to take steps back in their role and are still able to contribute and do things at a high level, like I'll use KT as an example. Like since Luke's been back, she's reverted back to her bench role, but she's still out there playing excellent basketball. She's still doing things at a really high level. And I think that that's just a testament to the coaching staff making sure that she still has that support and she still has that trust. Like Leo, as another example, Leo wasn't in the rotation early, and then she played, and then you see that trust in her maintain. And even when she has off nights, that trust is still there. And I
Yep.
think that you get that with good coaching and coaching that sort of
Agreed.
encourages players to sort of like build on the strengths,
Yep.
experiment, try new things. And I think that just sort of circle back to KT a little bit more, like at the end of last season, Sandy was like, yo, we didn't realize how good she was off the ball. And we was like, yo, go work on that. She worked on that. She came back this year. Like you see her being able to
Mm-hmm.
drive to the basket, do more ball handling, doing those things. I don't think you get that if you don't have a coach that's really bought into that player and what they're doing and encourage
Agreed.
them to do new things. Like you want to have a coach who's like, okay, I want you to try this, and if you mess it up, it's okay. Don't beat yourself up. Like, yeah, one thing that for a story I'm working on, Sandy was talking about when with players making mistakes, she's like, F the mistakes. Just we know you're great. Don't worry about it. Like when I was your age,
Mm.
at the times I would overthink, I'd play like poop. The
Trash.
S
Yep.
word. Yeah. Yep. So it's like you see, like Sandy's like, okay, I've been there, I played at this level, I would make mistakes, and I have people who believed in me. I believe in you. Do what you do. Let me deal with any sort of blowback. Like
And I
that.
love what you're talking about. I love what you're talking about. And I'm gonna give an example of two coaches that are very different, but both the Venn diagram, they meet in the middle when it comes to trusting their players. And I think they have different approaches to building confidence in their players. Listen, me personally, I'm gonna take a teaspoon kind of coach all day.
Mhm.
All day. All day. She speaks my language, but she's gonna build you up, and she's also gonna keep it funky. Like if this isn't working, y'all need to fix this. I'm gonna be here for you. I'm gonna support you, but you need to get this right. Sandy does the same thing, but her energy level is a little bit different and her approach is different. Sandy Brondello is the right coach. I've seen it in the comments, and I agree with this, which is why I know someone put in about Sherrod. I love that they brought in Sherrod. Now it's only a 7 days, so we'll see how that goes. But because yeah, I do think we need some bite. We need some dang bite on this New York Liberty team. I've been saying that for years. We ain't got it. And Sandy, a la Teaspoon, who has a lot of dogs. She got the whole kennel on her dang team. You know, she got a lot of dogs, that energy, that attitude. There's just a certain way that you play, and her team is like that. Sandy's team is more like Sandy Brondello. Sandy Brondello was a baller. You feel me? Like she was out there and she did what she had to do. Now, was she making headlines and all that? No, not really. As a player, no. But was she effective? Was she a good teammate? Absolutely. And that's the same way she is as a coach.
Mm-hmm.
That's the same way she is as a coach. And this is a New York Liberty team where, you know, I do wish they'd get a little more bite. But you know what Sandy is going to have them do? She's going to have them confident. And I said it on last episode. I try not to say when I think players do or don't have confidence. Like you have to have confidence. I don't know how you're not a confident person, just generally speaking, when you play in the WNBA. And having confidence in every aspect of your game, not everybody has. You're confident in the one thing that you do, maybe.
Mhm.
Stewie, when Stewie was missing her 3-pointers, do you think she lacked confidence? Do you think there was any part of her that was like, nah, I'm not going to take this shot? Now, she might not have wanted to take it, but she was going to take it. Why? Because she's confident in who she is, and she knows that basketball is a game of numbers,
Yep.
and that eventually the averages are going to even out. That's what the New York Liberty need. They need a coach that is going to continue to drill in what they need to fix and let the averages, let the math let the math average itself out. And to your point, Brian, how many times have the New York Liberty lost 3 games in a row? Well, that's easy. None. 0 times. They've only lost 4 games. And no back-to-backs.
Yeah, they've done so many things well this year, and I think that when
Agreed.
defense first, yeah,
I'll say I agree with that last part. That first part, they're working on. They're working on being organized and disciplined consistently. Because when they got it, they got it. But when they don't, they ain't got it.
Yeah, it's a little bit. Yeah. So I think for this Liberty team that they've definitely I would say pretty epic because it's going to be a full camp day slate across.
Is it going to be the Super Bowl?
For Connecticut, it might be.
It's going to be the Super Bowl.
Yeah, I mean for them, hey, if it's play like you ain't playing again tomorrow if you lose. So I think that might be the Suns credo, and I think they've also hold on. I feel like all the top teams struggle.
I agree with this.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm sorry to cut you off, Brian, but I've been saying this. I was like, Stewie, she's not hitting right now. I was like, what? Wait till we get back from Olympic break. Matter of fact, right around this time, Stewie's going to activate. I would almost put money on it. Again, not a betting woman, but just knowing Stewie the way I think I know Stewie in her game, she about to hit a whole nother level because she's smart. She's not trying to go into the Olympics tired. what she look like? Which is wild. Anyway.
Yeah, so I think tomorrow is going to be a really good test for them, and I think it's also going to be, since it's the first leg of a back-to-back, I think it's going to be interesting to see how the rotations shake out because you've got another team waiting for you Thursday night. So it's going to be interesting to sort of see how the minutes play, if Niara is going to be good to go, how often he would play. I want to see a little bit more of Burke. Like, she's done well in the past couple of games. And I think as a matter of fact, I think she was the only Liberty player to have a positive plus minus on Saturday. So in her minutes, they were doing really well. So I think that there's room for her. And Sandy even said it. She was like, in retrospect, maybe I should have went to her a little bit more in the cup final because she played well in that game too. So you have a bench player.
I don't even know what this means, but y'all could come if you want to. I ain't going nowhere. Every week, right here, I gotta get up. Podcast for New York Liberty fans. Y'all do your worst, as they say in the Count of Monte Cristo. Do your worst.
Yeah, we ain't going nowhere.
And we ain't going nowhere. I ain't never scared, but because I'm from New York. If you know, you know. I'm from New York. I'm from around the way.
Yeah. Anyway. So they'll be fine. I think that I want to see how things. I think redeem stuff playoffs. Yeah, I think it's just a matter of pacing, and I think
it's exactly pacing. And I like that you said pacing because I'm not saying she's saving anything. I think I like that term. That's more accurate. She's pacing herself, especially knowing that she didn't play overseas, so the pacing is different for Stewie. Because she didn't. This is the first time she did not play in an off season overseas season. So she's okay, all right. We're just making sure. I went straight New York. All right. My bad, Paris. My bad. See, that's what happens when you just read the comments out of order. Okay, all right. My bad. I was ready. I was ready. But you're right. This is a big game. And it's big because the New York Liberty are playing only Connecticut and Chicago
for
the All-Star break.
and then everybody disappears for a month.
Yes. And then everyone disappears, including me, because I'll be in Paris.
Yeah.
I'll be in Paris. I'm excited. We're
Yeah.
gonna have some really cool stuff for y'all. So remember, I'll drop it again. Make sure you join us on Slack. We're gonna have some fun stuff for y'all. Exactly. I think Brian really hit it. Pacing. It's the pacing, and Stewie is in a different pace, and so I wonder what that's gonna mean for the New York Liberty. But I like what you said about Burke. Niara, big question mark there. And again, Teaspoon got a lot of heat for the Camilla thing. And again, you got to listen to our new podcast with Roberta, where we talk about this, because we have a theory. I think there's maybe 2-3 reasons why Teaspoon might have put Camilla on the bench. But I wonder now if Sandy is going to find herself in a similar situation. Do you need to get Burke? And this is a genuine question, Brian. Do you need to get Burke more minutes and more touches before All-Star? Do you need to get Niara activated before All-Star? And yes, in the case of Niara, she's going to be an Olympian, but you also have to think about just her getting familiar with the rotations for the New York Liberty. Is it better to have her do that now before All-Star break than waiting and you never find a time to get her in because the games mean more?
Yeah, I think injuries it's never a good time to be injured, but I think for Niara, getting injured at her time was especially bad because she was really playing well as the backup big. Like, she was doing everything well. Like, in that Chicago game, I would say she was their best player that night. In the Sky game at Barclays Center, I think that she was like their best big that evening. And then she got hurt, and it's like, man, all that forward progress is taking a step back. So I'm excited to sort of see her get some reps in before Paris. And I think for KB, you have someone who I think they fit a lot of combinations. Like, she fits a lot of combinations on this team. Like Sandy said, she can play a little small ball 5. She can do those things. She can play the 4 really well. Like, if you want to slide Stewie as center, KB is a perfect 4 woman to go with her. When JJ's in there, she does everything well too. Like, and I think that in the past couple wins, that when she's been in the game in the second quarter, that's helped stem the tide in a sense. Like in Atlanta, with her in the lineup with Sloot and some other players, like that turned it around. Saturday, her minutes helped turn things around too. So I think that having a player like her sort of helps put things more in motion. And I think that it gives Sandy an option to really have versatile, like switchy players like her and Thornton. Like, they've been really, as far as like teammates go, you've really sort of seen the friendship and continuity grow between them this year. And I think you sort of see that trust with them on the court as well. So I think you have so many good options to turn to, and you have so many ways and avenues you can explore things with this team. And I think that I think tomorrow you don't want to experiment too much, only because if you get a win against Connecticut there, you're up 2-0 in the season series. And then
that's critical.
If you get that tiebreaker, that may prove to be essential down the line. So
that's a good point. So they got it. Like, the next game against Connecticut is the big one. Of course, they're going to see them right before we go to All-Star again. You don't want to lose that necessarily either, but you got to get, if you don't get the first one, then you got to get the second. So that could be an interesting way. I mean, you want to talk about a Super Bowl game, that Connecticut game, that's a big one. So now, because like, let's keep it a buck. We talk about this a lot. Sab's going to get lit up on social media. Do I think she cares? Absolutely not. But we're going to have to deal with Sab getting lit up, because they're going to bring them Super Bowl comments back if they don't get that win. If they don't get that win, and don't let them drop the next 2 to Connectichet or 1 to Chicago. I mean, like, dang, this is insufferable. The internet is even more insufferable than usual. You got to get some of these folks minutes. I think it's a balancing act, though, between where they're at. And, you already know, I agree with this. It would be wonderful if they could figure out a way to improve their defense. And you know who I think could immediately improve their defense, because got that dog in them, got that hustle mentality in them. Bam! I want to see Sherrod.
Yeah, I'm kind of, I'm so curious about that, because I had to, I saw around training camp time, Jonathan Kolb sort of like laid out his vision. He was like, "Oh, with the extra cap space, we'll try to grab a 0 to 3 year
I saw you
experienced
post
player around
that.
this
Yeah.
time, and then afterwards, if we need like a more experienced player, we'll do it after the break." So we're starting to see the optionality and sort of full vision of what he had for the roster, sort of like get to its final stage in a sense. So I think for Jalen, if she does get minutes, like you have another player who can pick up full court, because B does it all the time. Like B will pick up full court. Like she did it Saturday against
Yep.
Clark. Like she can
Yep.
do it against like a Ty Harris or any player like that. So she can do full court. If you have another player who can do that, then I think that it makes things a lot harder on the Sun. And I
I
think
agree.
what will help the Liberty tomorrow is that the Sun is almost like wrestling a bear when you play Connecticut, because it's going to be very close and tight, and you're not going to be sort of like free flowing like you would against a team like Las Vegas. Like you're going to be in the mud. It's going to be like a brawl playing against the Sun, and they
And
keep
that's
the
what they
games.
want. And
Yeah,
that's
like
what they want.
yeah,
That's what they want.
Connecticut wants to sort of have you in a phone booth boxing with them. So
Yep.
if you're able to sort of like reduce
Hockey
your
fight.
mistakes, yep,
They grabbing your collar and punching.
yep, like, and they not letting go. Like
Nope.
they keeping you in that grip, and they're gonna make sure that you're playing a really
Well
slow
said.
down game to where they want to be at. So I
Yep.
think for the Liberty, if they're able to sort of like reduce their turnovers, like they'll have less sort of like rooms to screw up in transition, because Connecticut don't push it like that anyway. Like
They don't. Yeah,
yeah,
that's true.
yeah.
I like
So
that. I like that. I think also that's an opportunity for the New York Liberty to show what they can do in transition. And that's this, honestly, everything that you're saying, Brian, makes me think, how much do we see Courtney Vandersloot? Because if you want to talk about someone who's battle tested, who fits in with the rotation already, Courtney Vandersloot for me is the safe and likely sensible option. I want to see Sherrod just because I think, to your point that you mentioned earlier, it gives you another option.
yeah,
But I think, if Sloot can give you significant minutes, I think you kind of have to rock with that and let the point guard be the point guard. Now there's a few things that go into that. Where is Courtney Vandersloot after missing significant time and not participating in basketball activities, and then all of the other things that we've been talking about on the podcast? You don't want to push Sloot if it's not there. I'm just saying it could be an option, and something that, at least for this season, if we go on recent history, that not a lot of teams have scout on.
yeah. Like something fascinating I'm thinking about for the Liberty is that since Sloot has been back, like Sandy has in the fourth quarters of close games, Sandy's gone with the big four, and then a combination of either KT or Leo. Like they give you that length and that size
Right.
that makes it really impossible to score against you on the perimeter, and then you slide Sabrina down to the point guard role. Yep,
Yeah.
down the mud. Yeah, like you sort of slide Sabrina down into that point guard option. So I'm really interested to see how that, if Sandy does go against course tomorrow, because like Connecticut, like the thing about the Sun, like we talked about it a little bit earlier, they don't really have those A+ perimeter scores like that outside of Bonner. So I guess if there were going to be like, okay, Sloot, like you're playing well. You're playing well. You're keeping us organized, and you're getting those drives to the basket. I'll leave you out there as compared to going to Leo or KT. In this instance, I think that tomorrow would be the matchup to do it if Sandy were.
That's what I'm saying. And I
Yeah.
don't disagree with Damian, at least on the coming off the bench. We talked about this last season, Brian. I think the writing's kind of on the wall when it comes to that. I think Sloot wants to, again, things on her with her family, it might have changed her timeline. Who knows? Completely understandable. But, Sloot's not retired yet. And I think that, so here's the thing. Here's my theory, right? I believe that Sandy will have a shorter, quote unquote, leash with Courtney Vandersloot if she sees things are not working, because of all of the things that we've talked about that have been surrounding Courtney Vandersloot in the last handful of seasons. I do think it's worth trying it. Does it have to be as a starting role? No. I think you can do it off the bench. I think you can do it just to give Connecticut a different look, because they are going to have you in that vice grip. And Courtney Vandersloot can, I say it all the time, is a slippery guard at her best and can make things happen. And it, you know what that does? It takes a little heat off Sab. And it gives you options later in the game. But I do think if Courtney Vandersloot can go, then you have to put her in a position to play that role.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think so as well. And I think that I think sometimes getting Sabrina off the ball for a little bit can never hurt. And
Agreed.
then you have like, it feels like everyone sort of like slides down a role in the ball handling responsibility. So B's not handling as much. Stewie's not having to initiate offense as much. Because
Right.
yeah, like they said here, you have the safe and solid option in Vandersloot. So I think there's still a role for her here. And I think that when it
okay, go ahead. I'm sorry, Brian.
Yeah, and I think that within that role, you can sort of like it's almost like a relief pitcher in a sense, where it's like you're not pitching 7 innings every night anymore. You're going for you're like you have 3 batters here, so you can throw 102.
Okay, baseball reference. I see what you did there. Let's go. Let's go. You're not going the distance with Sloot. I think to Damien's point, the writing's on the wall there. But I also agree with lean with it, rock with it. I do think this is interesting, and it goes to what Paris is saying here too. More concerned about Chicago than Connecticut. Here's the thing: you got slow and steady in Connecticut, and then it's the tortoise with Connecticut. Respectfully, I mean, I just mean that their game is not excitable. It's not going to be erratic. They don't get sped up very much. If anything, they are elite at slowing everybody else down. Mm-hmm. And again, they're going to throw them bows. But Chicago and this little piece right here, take it, listen, I'm with you. And Chicago, they got an ego, and they lean into that ego.
Yeah, like Chicago, like they'll talk to you a lot, and it's like, oh, like you start off slow, you hear a chirp. Like we don't. I feel like we don't talk about this enough, but like as far as like players who are like always in the something in the league, we don't acknowledge Marina Mabry and the antics enough.
Oh, I love she from Jersey, so she family. She's in the tri-state family. So like, Marina, she don't play. She does not play.
Marina be talking, boy. Like if you flick your hair at her,
Chyl. Do you mean the goat Cheryl Swoops? Because I don't know who that Cheryl is.
I gotta what happened?
And I don't know what she said.
Yeah, I gotta
look. If I had to guess, she probably said something about Caitlin. If I had to guess, but I really don't know. Also, I don't know who this Cheryl is. But
yeah, we'll see. Yeah. I'm gonna check that out a little bit later. But like, as far as the Sky go, they be talking, man. Like, you see,
that was hilarious.
Angel with the cover photos, like mean mugging after she got the N1. Like
they don't play. They're not scared. They ain't scared of nobody in these streets.
Kennedy be talking like
they ain't scared of nobody in these streets. And listen, I'm not saying the New York Liberty is scared. I'm not gonna say that. I would never. But there's only a handful of New York Liberty players that gonna, talk their mess and back it up. You know what I'm saying? Like on the regular, consistent. They don't care who they going up against.
Yeah, I will say it's a great thing that Sabrina has her voice back again. So that was barking at people.
Yeah, well,
like you can't. I feel like just as far as like maintaining things.
Thanks, Paris. We appreciate it. We're trying to get to 1,000 subs. Yeah, we talk the game. We have fun, but we keep it. Yeah,
Yeah, like
we like talking the game.
Yeah, I feel like you can't have a situation where you want to bark at somebody, but like your voice is completely cooked. So it's like you're getting at them, but your throat hurts and they can't hear you. So it's like I can't do this anymore. Now that her voice is back, it's like okay, if someone wants to talk, she there. And then
when she get them eyes, she get them steely eyes. I'm like, Sab in the zone.
She'll stare you down too. Like
she don't have no problem. When that ponytail whip, child, watch out now. Watch out now.
Like,
All right, y'all. Listen, everyone's right. Listen, UConn Stewie needs to take over in Connecticut tomorrow. Let's go.
you,
Bring Jonathan the Husky over. Have a little pep talk, a little
you
pup
think Paige
talk.
will be there?
Hey, Is Paige gonna make her women's sports world tour tomorrow? You think?
She was in Seattle Sunday night. I'm like, what you doing up there?
Listen, she got a private jet, all that NIL money. Listen, she putting that NIL money to work, and I for one love it for her. I'm like, child, listen, you trying to support a up and coming media company? We can use some of that. Whatever your travel budget is, we'll take a quarter of that. We'll take a quarter of that.
That's not down here.
I'm saying, listen, come on now, come on, Paige, spread the love. But no, these are going to be critical games for the New York Liberty. Ain't no getting around that. And we talked that they haven't lost 2 back-to-back, Brian, not this season anyway.
Yeah.
If there was a time that it could happen, I'm looking at this schedule and it could happen. It could happen before All-Star. And so, you know how we like to end these shows? The New York Liberty will stave off back-to-back losses if
Jonquil gets at least 18 points. I think that when JJ is fully locked in on offense, they are impossible to handle. Like, I think you put any team in front of them when JJ's locked in the way that she can be, you're not getting a game off of them. And I think that if JJ is able to really sort of find her groove early on offense, it'll open up everything for the rest of the team. And I think that they wind up beating Connecticut by a respectable margin if they do.
I like it. And I want to go to, there's something that my colleague over at CBS Sports wrote that I thought was wild. Jonquil Jones had just 6 points in the loss to the Fever. The Liberty are 2-3 this season when she fails to reach double digits in scoring. You want to know what their record is when JJ hits double digits? At least 10 points? Mm-hmm. First of all, can y'all guess? I want to know if y'all can guess. What is the New York Liberty record when Jonquil Jones has at least 10 points? I'm gonna wait. I like what Lean With It Rockwood is saying. We win if our starting 5 gets double figures. I like it. What do y'all think? What's the Liberty record when Jonquil Jones has at least 10 points? This was wild to me. Okay. Hannah says 12-0, 15-1. Okay. 17-1. Okay. See, this is why I mess with y'all, because these are all pretty close. It's y'all right here, Aloysius and Night Owl, are the closest, because the answer is the New York Liberty, Brian, are 15-1 when JJ scores at least 10 points.
Yep. Like, JJ is such a matchup nightmare for any big opposed in her way. Like, even your very best big, like, name your big, and JJ's giving them trouble. So when she's locked in like that, the Liberty
are close too.
Yeah, the Liberty are so good when Jonquil
15-1. Yeah, you were close. Y'all were close. That's why I was like, y'all be knowing. Y'all be knowing. Yeah. We got a smart group here. That was wild to me, like seeing that number. And I mean, 2-3, it's significant only because that 15-1 number is so ridiculous, you know? Like 2 out of 3, as the song goes, ain't bad, right?
Yeah.
2 out of 3 ain't bad, but 15-1 is bonkers.
Yeah.
And that's why, what do we say all the time? What do I say? So I'm gonna say it right now. The New York Liberty win if JJ gets the ball early in the shot clock. Give her the ball.
Yeah.
Find a way to get her the ball. You know, because she's got to get, we see the stats don't lie. She's got to get at least 10. Got to get at least 10, statistically speaking, you know, for the odds.
Yep.
But the way that you get her that is if you get her the ball early, because then that opens everyone up, to your point, Brian, what you just said, that she has so much, she's a matchup nightmare. A nightmare. And that doesn't happen if she's eliminated from the offense.
Yep. Like you get JJ going, like you put Bree Jones in early foul trouble. 0-0 is off the bench, but she's not able to really stay with JJ like that. So you really,
Damn, Jones, right? That's what I'm saying.
yeah, like you really get to put extra pressure on the Sun in that regard when she's able to make their bigs a non-factor. And in that first game, there were moments when DB would get switched onto JJ, and then John Crow got the ball down there, and it's like, oh no, the Wanda's tall, but she ain't,
She ain't thick.
yeah, she ain't got the
She
bulk.
ain't lean. Yeah.
Yeah, so it's
No,
like,
JJ's just like,
yep. Every time, like, it's like, oh, hello, Dewana, out the way, and then that's 2 points. So
man.
you gotta
Yep.
like, yep, you get her the ball, you make it work, and then I think everything else sort of like dials in a little bit more. And I think especially for coming off a loss and coming up against an elite team in Connecticut, I think that they've proved the Liberty have proved a lot this year, and we've seen them win big road games, including in Connecticut earlier. So I think it's going to be a great challenge that I think they're going to be ready for. And I think that the group is really going to try to see how they measure up again against one of the better teams in the league, because they're if more than likely they're probably going to have to see Connecticut down the line at some point.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah, like
The way it's going right now.
yeah.
Yep. Draw
And
the defense. Exactly. Be a threat. Draw the defense. That's how you go to this comment. I think it's more of a comment than a question from Damien. Get her the ball. What does that do? That shows that the team has faith and confidence in her. That shows that the team knows that they need JJ. And let's keep it real. If some of y'all are also women's soccer fans, you might understand this reference. A lot of people have been talking about Alex Morgan lately. The GOAT, as far as I'm concerned, chain, Lauren Cheney, aka Lauren Holiday. Yes, married to Drew Holiday. She talked about Alex Morgan, and that she knew that Alex Morgan was the kind of player who needed to know that she was good. She knew that she was good, and it was important for her to get that reinforcement, because when you're good, what happens? Everyone's trying to stop you.
mm-hmm.
And so that's where it goes back to confidence. We're human beings, right? If you feel like the universe is against you, there's going to be a minute where you throw your hands up and you like, yo, F this. I'm not going to try no more. I'm going to sit on my dang couch where it's safe and not do nothing, because I ain't going to get hurt like this. I ain't going to get these elbows like this. I ain't going to get this criticism like this. And so what Lauren Cheney Holiday, obviously I am paraphrasing, these are not direct quotes in case you did not realize, but what Lauren Holiday was saying is that she made a point to let Alex Morgan know that Alex Morgan was Alex Morgan.
Mm-hmm.
She the ish. The New York Liberty, and listen, I'm going to be honest. As a competitor myself, I wasn't that kind of teammate. Like, I was like, oh, that's what you need? You're going to have to get it from somebody else, because I got worried about me, baby. I can't be stroking your ego. Show up, baby, show up. That's just how I was.
Yeah.
And now that I'm a little older and I'm doing more analysis now that I'm not playing, I understand that completely. And that's real. And that's leadership. And that's why I say Stewie might low-key be the floor general, because Stewie knows what she can do. And Stewie was one of the first people, one of the most consistent people, along with Sabrina, saying that everything they did last year, they needed JJ. They know they have to activate JJ, and that still stands. And JJ needs to know, or at least believe, that she is the number one option. So go to her early and let her cook. Period.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think you also want to have a situation where, thinking back to the Cup game in Minnesota, where they just try to like force it to her in disadvantageous spots, it's like, get her the ball, but get her the ball in spots where it makes sense. Like,
right.
if there's like three bigs sort of like sitting in her lap and you're just throwing the ball in there, it's like, don't do that. Reverse the ball. Do something else. Yeah, be smart. Yeah, be smart about it. Like, use that creativity and that continuity you guys have to get her the ball in advantageous positions, and then let her operate from there. I think if they do that, everything sort of flows off of that pretty easily.
And to your point, I think a reason why it's a little harder for them to get the ball, I literally just thought about this.
Mm-hmm.
The reason it's a little harder is because the decoy, other than Stewie, who people are going to eliminate, I think I joked around and I was like, yo, Stewie and or Sab, they're already knocked out. They knocked him out cold. and then all attention is going to go to JJ. So what you need, and Sab playing more on the ball means that she's not attracting defensive attention by moving off the ball.
Mm-hmm.
And that makes an impact on how you can even get the ball to facilitate to JJ. So I've said it before. I wouldn't listen. It would be hella out of position. But if you find a way to get Stewie to get the ball to JJ, I don't think you lose.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe I need to take back what I said. Maybe you need to give Stewie the ball so that she can get it to JJ. Because one thing, especially in the W, a post player going to find a way to get their other post the ball.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I think that definitely I want to see them operate in space, because Connecticut will crowd you out.
I don't know about this, Damien.
Yeah.
I don't know about that. You got listen. We got photo evidence. Stewie is in the huddle talking. She's good. She's good.
Yeah. I feel like I think if they're able to sort of like spread Connecticut out as much as possible, it makes things a lot more challenging on them. And I think that, if they're able to do that, I think that it'll just make things like you'll have those driving lanes, and then you'll have those opportunities to find success. And I think if they're able to do that, they'll be able to sort of like hit various different buttons and sort of like make the Sun play out of character in a sense. So if they're able to do that, I think that they'll be able to really sort of like establish themselves a little bit. And I think also just it probably won't be similar to the first Connecticut game, and as far as like how the crowd goes, but usually there's a really strong Liberty contingent in there. And we may not see it this time due to the super early start on a weekday, but there's always like a nice New York contingent in there, and then players always sort of like get a little bit of extra bump when their fans are sort of giving them that encouragement and support. So if there's like a little Liberty contingent in there, I think they'll be able to like give them a little bit of extra juice too. So it'll make for a fun watch for all of us at home.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah, Stewie is the leader. Now, this is interesting. If this is what Kelsey Plum had said, I still wouldn't like it, but I couldn't argue.
Yeah.
But that's not what she said.
Yeah, and then all that other stuff. And it's like, hey, wait a minute. What do you nah.
Don't do that. Don't do that. Don't be talking about other people's relationships. Mind your own. Mind your own. Mind your own. But I think there's something to this. And I've said it before. I'll say it again. And then we'll close on this, because I think there's something to this. Asia Wilson's tears helped get the Aces back-to-back championships. Bill Lambier's coaching follies led to, at least in part, the Aces going all in on Becky Hammon. Mm-hmm. The New York Liberty are in their infancy with this core. Now, the fact of the matter is we might not see them get as many years as the Aces did, because the Aces did it through the draft. The New York Liberty are doing it, or trying to, through free agency. So there's something to this. And that's why this stretch could be critical in seeing where the New York Liberty really are when it comes to fortifying their leaders. Because I do think Stewie is leadership material. I think she is the leader on this team. And before coming to New York, Brian, who did she have to lean on? Who could she run to? Sue Bird.
Yep.
That's a pretty big leader. And they don't make point guards. We don't get a lot of elite, I'm talking elite, immortalized until the end of time point guards in the WNBA for whatever reason. We just don't. But Sue Bird is one of them, for sure. Yeah. And that's what Stewie was working under. Now she's got to figure out how to do that, and she's not a point guard. It's a learning curve for sure. New team for sure, but Stewie's doing it. She's doing it. And I do think it's an underrated skill of hers. Brian, we've been on here for dang near 2 hours. This is what happens when we go on Tuesday and not Thursday. I gotta still eat dinner. It's about to be 8:00 here in Central Time. But yeah, I agree with this as well. You already know. I don't agree with that second part, but I agree with the first part. You already know who I think is going to get the keys.
Mhm.
But it's going to be a good test. We're going to see what this New York Liberty squad has. It's now or never. I love that. I love it. Yeah. I agree. Stewie gets JJ the ball best. And we might need to see a lot of that in the next 4 games for the New York Liberty. But that is going to be it. But Black Rosie Media will be back. It will be a pre-recorded, not live, pre-recorded. We're kind of calling it our trailer, our pilot episode of the to be named Seattle Storm specific podcast. But we're going to talk about Orbeta and how she got into sports media. We're obviously going to talk about Teaspoon and Camila. We're also going to do a deeper dive into the Australian national team and other players that have passed through the Seattle Storm that we're expecting to see and will be covering in the Olympics. So that is what we got, and it's time to go because the family chat is blowing me up for some reason. I don't know what's going on, but I'm about to find out. All right, folks, you know how we do. It's time to awkwardly wave as we say goodnight and goodbye. If you haven't already, join the Black Rosie Media Slack channel, and you know we're going to have thoughts about this stretch. But all right, we're going to do the Ellie wave, and we're out of here. Thank you so much, especially for the Indiana homies who came in. Y'all held it down for the Fever, and I respect that. And we'll see if we catch y'all in the playoffs. You gonna make it there first because Chicago got something to say about that for sure. All right, everybody, have a great night. Join us on Slack. Make sure you, if you're not already, you subscribe, hit those notifications so you know the next time we have a video. Peace out. Wave.